Hello and welcome back to another episode of Nomad Neek's Lifestyle. So, for today's episode, I have a special guest and one of my good friends who I met here in China. She has lived not only in China, but in some other countries and also taught there as well. So, today we're going to talk a little more about teaching in China and elsewhere and traveling and whatnot. So I will introduce you to my friend Courtney. Hi, Courtney.
Hi, Nicole.
Okay, so Courtney, why don't you start by telling us where you are from and kind of how the journey of teaching abroad started for you?
Sure. So I'm originally from upstate New York, Albany, New York. Not the cool part of New York, sorry. um, and I have kind of a crazy story about how I ended up living abroad. It was not in my original plans at all. I was actually a social worker in DC, and I got a little burnt out, to be honest. I had been working in the social work field for about 6 years in mental health. So I decided I really wanted to learn another language. I really wanted to learn Spanish. And I had been looking into volunteer opportunities in South America, and that wasn't really panning out, mostly because a lot of them you had to pay for, which was a little confusing for me. I was surprised, like, oh, I have to pay to volunteer. Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Yeah. Um, so anyway, I had done some traveling in Europe before, and I'd really been wanting to go back. So I signed up for some courses to learn Spanish in Malaga, Spain. So the plan was to go for 3 months and study Spanish, try to learn as much as possible, and then maybe use that when I came back to the U.S. Obviously, that plan never happened. So I went to Malaga, and I absolutely fell in love with Spain, with Malaga, the Malaga lifestyle. If you don't know of Malaga, it's in southern Spain. It's right on the beach. A lot of people in Europe go there for vacations. So, and it's absolutely beautiful.
I'm just like imagining it. I'm like, oh, I'd love to be there right now.
Right. It was like it was the perfect place to start for sure. So anyway, I had gone there on a student visa, which I then I guess the visa was for 6 months, even though I had only signed up for 3. So I decided, oh well, I'll stay the full 6 months. And then people told me, oh, you can actually, after your visa expires, you can stay another 3 months as a tourist. And I was like, oh, well, nice. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Of course, by this time, my Spanish was doing pretty well, but I was also starting to go broke. So in that time, a lot of people had asked me if I taught English, and I had never taught before. But I had a lot of opportunities to tutor. So I started doing that. I took an online TEFL course, so I had some idea of what I was doing. That helped a lot. And yeah, so that's how I got into teaching. And after spending almost a year in Spain, I just had to stay. So sorry, this is a really long story.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's interesting.
All right. So anyway, I started looking into more full-time teaching opportunities, and I found a program. It was called Up International. I don't know if it even still exists because this is obviously years ago.
Yeah.
So it was a teacher training program in Madrid, and you worked in private bilingual schools in Madrid, well, one school, and you at the same time you were doing like a teacher training program. So yeah, that's how I ended up moving to Madrid, and I lived there for 4 years.
Wow, I can so jealous. I think that's kind of interesting though. Like, I feel like most people who want to like leave their home country and teach abroad, like for me, you study your TOEFL in your country and then you leave, and you were kind of like the opposite. You just went to like, let's visit, hang out, whatever, and then you're like, actually, I'm gonna stay here and just take a TOEFL.
Yeah, and I kept extending and extending, and my family and friends back home kept asking me, so when are you coming back?
Yeah.
When are you coming back?
Because how long were you supposed to be gone for
It was
originally?
supposed to be 3 months originally.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now what is this? Like 10 years later? 8 years later?
This is now 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So obviously people at home have gotten used to the fact that I'm abroad now, but yeah.
That's crazy. That's really interesting. So, okay, so tell us a little bit about what was Spain like. So what was the visa situation like? I guess like once you got the working visa, what was the culture, the lifestyle, the teaching job itself? Like what was just kind of Spain like?
Sure. There's a lot to tell. So first of all, I guess for the visa situation, so all of the jobs that I had in Spain, I was actually given a student visa. There was some kind of loophole that they found where they considered us students, that any pay that we received was a stipend. So it was basically easier to get us visas that way.
So were you taxed on that or not then?
No, it was tax free,
Hmm.
and we also got like free private health care too, which was really nice.
Wow. I wonder if that still exists.
So the program does still exist. I actually have a lot of friends that are still doing it.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you're not paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's like barely enough to get by. You really have to look for other side gigs to support yourself if you want to have any kind of fun, do any traveling, things like that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I taught a lot of private classes. I ended up finding an academy job that I did in the evenings, teaching adults actually, that I really liked. So yeah, that's kind of how I supported myself while I was there.
So in terms of like just while we're on the topic of like actually teaching,
Sure.
what was, if you're not making a lot of money from the job that gives you the visa, was it like how many hours? Was it just like a really simple job, or what was it like?
Yeah, it was really simple. So that first job that I talked about in Madrid, that was a little bit more intense, but it was actually less money that we were being paid. But I think it was because they were offering us that that teacher training. It ended up being like a postgraduate program.
Okay.
So I only did that for 1 year because it was so little money. And the school that I was working at was really, really far outside of the city. I had to take a bus for like over an hour every morning.
Wow.
And it was really far. So I ended up leaving that after 1 year. It was a really nice school. But there I was actually teaching my own classes. They would split the classes into two, so you get like 15 students that you do just basic ESL classes with. And it was in addition to the English classes they had with their Spanish teacher. And then so I ended up getting a job with, it's called Auxiliares de Conversación.
Nice.
It's what's the English name for it? I can't remember now. Cultural ambassadors or something like that.
Okay.
They call it. Anyway, it's all over Spain and it's in the public schools actually. So you're basically more of a teacher assistant, but it really depends on the teachers you end up working with. Like in some situations, you'll be a co-teacher. You'll teach together. In some situations, they're like, you have the classroom, teach. And in other situations, they like barely use you at all. So it really just depends on the teachers. And also, you have like an advisor person that is like in charge of you, like through the school. So, but that job was so super easy because you really don't have any of the responsibilities of being a teacher. Like, you might help out with the grading, but you're really not supposed to. The Spanish teacher is in charge of all behavior management. So
Nice.
You're really not supposed to be doing any of that yourself. What else? Obviously, you don't talk to the parents unless you happen to see them when they're picking up their kids.
No marking.
No, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's so easy. You don't have to be there when you're not teaching. So,
So how many hours a week was it, like, typically in the classroom?
In the classroom, I want to say like 10. Like,
Nice.
yeah, not very many at all.
Okay.
So honestly, like, it was easy to do extra jobs because you had so much free time.
Yeah.
Like the first school I worked at, they actually finished school at 2 p.m. So, and then I don't know if you know this about Spain, but they have a lot like different meal schedules than like the rest of the world. So you have breakfast early in the morning, but then you have a snack around like 11. So they would have coffee and like food for the, like little sandwiches or like different foods for the teachers. So that's like a 30-minute break, and then the students have like a little recess during that time. And then they don't eat lunch until 2 p.m. like when they're leaving.
Okay.
So that was really nice. So you have like the whole afternoon free, you know?
Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah, you can go home, take a nap, and then start working again or do whatever you like. Yeah.
So was the money okay once you, like, obviously had that main gig, but then you had a bunch of side gigs as well? Like, could the money be okay, or was it just, like, always the money was pretty shit?
I mean, it really just depends how hard you wanted to work yourself in the side gigs and if you were lucky enough to find ones that paid you well.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot. You only work 4 days a week at the school.
Oh, okay.
So you'll either have Friday or Monday off.
Nice.
Yeah. I think some unlucky people got days off during the week, but most people either had Friday or Monday. Okay. So it's great for traveling because you can easily take a 3-day weekend somewhere.
So where did you travel to?
I was all over the place. I can say my favorite places that I traveled to, definitely Prague and Budapest were probably my 2 favorite cities.
Nice.
But I traveled all over Spain too. There's so many amazing places to go in Spain. I think a lot of people don't go to the north of Spain. It's because it's colder, more mountainous. I guess most people who go to Spain, they want to be on the beach all the time.
Yeah.
But actually the north has beautiful beaches. San Sebastian, for example, a lot of people go there.
In the north?
In the north, yeah.
Okay.
That's probably the one place most people go. But beautiful beaches, the food is different and really, really delicious. And then they make, in Asturias in the north, they make this special cider. It's just different from anything else I've ever seen in the world. So I can't really
Sounds
explain
good.
it.
I like
Anyway,
cider. Okay.
yeah. I don't know. It's very bitter, so it's not like a sweet cider,
okay. Yeah,
right?
yeah, maybe not.
But it's good. Also Portugal. I loved Portugal.
Oh, yeah. And I'm sure it's just like an easy little trip over to Portugal, right?
Oh, so easy. It's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we have some interesting music happening in the background, so I don't know what's happening, but hopefully that turns off soon.
It's that in-between music at the school.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so fun fact, Courtney just moved to a new apartment, and it's like kind of on campus of where her husband works, so we just heard like the in-between like classes, I guess, bell. Okay, so anyway, so what was the social aspect of Spain, like social life in Spain?
Sure. I mean, we had a great social life. Obviously in Madrid, there's a huge expat community. It depends where you live. If you're living in more rural parts, there are going to be less expats for sure. But I love Spanish people. They're very open and friendly. I still have a lot of Spanish friends. The social life was great. One thing that was an issue was the program that we were working in was definitely it attracted more like really young people, like right out of college.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, I mean, I was already like 30 something, and then I'd be working with like a 22-year-old.
Yeah, different.
So, yeah, it was interesting.
You were 30 in Spain? I didn't know that.
Well, I came here. I'm 36 now, so yeah.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah,
True.
I turned 30 I think my first year in Spain.
Okay.
Wait, no, that's not right.
First year,
Third
no.
year? Third
Yeah.
year in Spain? Something like that.
So
I don't
how
know.
old were you
Whatever.
when you left the States?
28, I want to say.
What? I did not know that. I thought
Yeah,
you were.
if it's been 8 years,
Oh,
I'm
wow.
36 now.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
So, oh, okay. Wow. I did not realize that. So, my age, if I were you, my age, I'd still be working in the States.
Yep.
Huh. Okay. Interesting. That was interesting for me to realize. Okay. So, I think Spain, it sounds, I'm like, oh, I just want to go now. I wish we could travel.
I know.
Like,
I've been
after
dying
all
to go
that.
back. I haven't been back since I left, so I've been dying to go
We
back.
should definitely do a meetup there. But, okay, so now we are both in Shenzhen, China. We both arrived in 2017, and we met through our, like, company. So why don't you talk about a little bit about, like, how you decided to leave Spain, come to China, and what your experience of teaching in China has been like.
Sure. Well, okay, so why I moved to China, that's also kind of random. I actually was really looking for jobs in Asia in general. When I was living in Spain, it was just something I'd been thinking about for a while, just to try something new. I really wanted to, I don't know, like put myself in a situation that was like really out of my comfort zone a little bit. And I felt like Spain was, I mean, other than language difficulties and things like that, it was pretty easy to live there.
Mm-hmm. I feel like the culture, is kind of similar to like the West.
Right, right. So my original plan was actually to move to Korea or Vietnam.
Of course, Korea. Always Korea was mine too. It's everyone's.
And oh, by the way, I was planning on moving with my now husband. At the time, he was my boyfriend. And because we were both teachers in Spain, we actually met working in the same school. So anyway, so we were planning this together. He kept bringing up moving to China, and I was like, no, last place I want to go is China.
Yup, same.
No. So anyway, we ended up talking to this recruiter who was supposed to be looking for jobs for us in Korea.
Was it Dan?
Yeah, it was Dan.
Yeah.
Same recruiter.
Same recruiter.
And I don't know, did you ever talk to Jason that worked
Yes.
for Dan? Okay.
Yes.
So Jason was the one who convinced us to try Shenzhen because he was living here. He wrote us this long email like talking about how cool the city is and like how great for expats. It's like it's a great place to live. It's really green there. You know, because you think of China, you think of just
pollution,
big cities, like
yeah.
You don't think of like nice big green parks and like
there's lots of parks.
Sea and like yeah. So anyway, he really like convinced us. So we ended up chatting with him back and forth for a while about Shenzhen. So yeah, we both interviewed for a teaching position with this recruiting company. We actually did the interview together, which was very strange.
But looking back on it now, knowing about the company, you're like, they didn't actually care.
Yeah. It's probably true.
Yeah.
But I was like, what? They want to interview us at the same time together in the same video? Okay.
My interview was 13 minutes long on Skype. I was expecting like a full interview. Nope. They're like, do you speak English? When can you come? They were like, come next month. And I was like, it took me 9 months to get my visa, you know? I'm like, I can't just like come next month, but that's Haida for you.
Right. Yeah, so we made it to Shenzhen. Yeah, it was a long process getting all of our paperwork together and everything.
Especially being in Spain, I can imagine that would be like so much more difficult.
Well, the weird thing was, so I actually had gone home to the U.S. because I was like, before I go to China, I need to go home and visit my family. David, on the other hand, stayed in Spain, and he did everything from there. So for him, it was a little more difficult.
Yeah. All right, so we have both been in China for, what is it, like, wow, it's 2021, so I guess maybe like 3.5 years?
Yeah, well, if you want to count the COVID part where we weren't here.
Yeah, that's a whole other story.
Do we count that?
I just count it because, like, it's just easier to group it all together.
Right?
Yeah. So
And our
three and a
minds were
half.
here.
Our minds were definitely in China, yes.
Yeah.
And all of our things.
And all of our
and our
things.
pets.
Yeah.
So, okay, so what was your teaching experience like in China? Because you really kind of like started at the bottom and like definitely have worked your way up for sure. So, what was that kind of like for you, and what certifications did you get to kind of make that happen?
Sure. So I came here just having a TEFL certificate in the beginning, and my first job was in a public school. Um, I honestly did not like that job. I just kind of made it through the year, and it was mostly I just felt like I wasn't being used for my potential as a teacher at all. That I was just kind of like a foreign face in their school that was just there for show. Um, so my classes were each 50 students. I had how many different classes? I was teaching fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, all of the classes. So I think there were like 7 classes in each grade, something like that. It was just a ridiculous amount of classes, and I only saw them once every 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, I
So
forgot you were like bi-weekly.
yeah, it was ridiculous. So I was working like very, very few hours. Like it was very easy and also very easy to plan for because I just saw them once every 2 weeks. So I literally had to do 3 lesson plans once every 2 weeks. It was not bad. And then they had me do like an English corner once a week after school, where they would have like smaller groups of students together, and we mostly just played games like in English, things like that. It's pretty easy, honestly. Very easy job. And honestly, for what I was doing, I think they paid us pretty well.
Yeah.
Um, it was definitely enough to survive
Live.
on.
Yeah.
Even save a little if you were careful. Um,
I do think though, if you're listening to this, like definitely the salary has gone down much more for those companies. So I don't
which is
think you would.
surprising. Where do they get their teachers from?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good like starting out in China position, you know.
It's an easy way to start out. They do help you out a little bit when you first get here, setting up a bank account, getting your Metro card, um, finding an apartment, somewhat
Get a
helping.
SIM card.
SIM
all that
card,
stuff.
yeah, all the, like the basic stuff when you first get here. They
Yeah.
definitely they help you find your school and introduce you to everyone.
Yeah, and it
You
is
know.
like a nice community. It's like that's how we met, you know, because all the people who are coming in at the same time who have no idea how to China, like we all kind of just become friends.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
actually, so Courtney and I and her husband David, we had a group of friends of probably like 15, 20 people
Mhm.
our first year, and they were all with our same company, or most of them with our same company. And we would always hang out every single weekend, and now the three of us are, and I guess actually for Cynthia, so
Yeah.
there's 4 of us who are like now
The stragglers.
the stragglers who stayed in China. I think everyone else went back to either their home country, Canada or America, or the UK.
Oh, Michael.
Michael's here too. Michael didn't really come when we all came though.
Oh no, he came earlier, right?
Yeah.
And
Michael
then
was in
Jason
Hangzhou.
too came later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we are the sole survivors. All right. So in terms of, I'm interested, like comparison of China and Spain, in terms of everything, like living, making money, teaching, social life, like how would you compare those two?
I would say as far as teaching goes, there's so much more opportunity in China than I had in Spain. The issue in Spain with job searching is that to get an actual work visa and work in like the private schools or the international schools there, you basically have to prove that there's no one with a European passport that can do that job, or the school has to prove that. So work visas can be extremely expensive. So most of the time they'll just hire within the EU. So it's really, really hard to get like a higher paid position I think in Europe in general, but definitely in Spain.
Okay.
So because I tried, I was looking into it and it was just not happening.
Yeah.
But in China, it's easy, honestly. um, I mean, I wouldn't say the whole visa process is easy. There's a lot to it. There's so much paperwork that you have to get collected and verified and whatever, changing hands a million times. But in the end, you do have the job, and there's just tons of opportunity for growth also as a teacher, if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah. So what about in terms of how much you make and social life, comparing the two?
Okay, so salary, like I said, in Spain, it was a struggle all the time. And here, I don't think I have struggled at all. And if anything, every year I'm making more. Definitely seen my savings accounts grow, and actually, it feels really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, COVID.
Yeah.
Some cuts into that. But,
yeah, definitely.
But you know.
But we're back, so.
But you know, if that had happened when I was in Spain, I would have been in really big trouble. And because I had savings from China and I had something to fall back on, I was fine.
Yeah.
So that felt really good. And definitely being able to start saving towards retirement. I know that sounds weird, but like when you think about, I've been abroad for 8 years. That means 8 years. I'm sorry, you're Canadian, but 8 years that I haven't been paying into Social Security back in the U.S.
Yeah.
8 years that I haven't had a 401k in the U.S.
I have the same stuff in Canada too.
Yeah. So like that's something that I have to think about.
Yeah. No, that's a good point, because I've thought about that too, and you know, it's like I don't think either of us really plan anytime going soon on like going to our home countries, so it is something that you have to think about. So. Okay, so what about in terms of social life?
Social life, honestly, both are surprisingly great. I guess surprisingly because it wasn't something I was expecting in China.
Yeah.
But I do have to say that I guess because I was more fluent in Spanish, but like I was able to become really close with a lot of Spanish friends, whereas here. I never feel like I have that close connection with Chinese people.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely with the expats, and the expat community is so close here. And I mean, if you have a question about anything, it will get answered.
We have.
Yeah.
I thought it was like the food guy coming.
I think it is.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully he makes it to the door.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's always someone who can answer any question you have. Everyone's very supportive of each other. Like everyone's kind of, I feel like you have to have a certain mindset to be able to live in a country like China also. So everyone's just very open-minded here. I mean, there's obviously some people that aren't, but they're usually the ones that don't stay long-term, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think like to be an expat anywhere, I mean, obviously I only have been in China, but like you need a different mindset than people at home have, because you're constantly meeting people from different countries with different views and like doing different things and like traveling anywhere really, you know, like it's just very different than home.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I would say like socially one of the hardest things about being an expat is that people are constantly leaving.
Yes.
And you're constantly making new friends, meeting new people, because you always have at the end of every school year you have teacher friends who are moving back to their countries or moving on to something else.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's something that I've definitely gotten used to, but it's still hard.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. I feel like I'm kind of going through that right now, because I'm like, I want to leave China, but like all of my friends are here. But then I don't know. I do think that maybe you feel the same way, since being in China, not even my first year, just like multiple years, I've become more like I meet people and I'm just like, hey, I'm Nicole. Whereas like before, I wouldn't do that, but I also wouldn't constantly be meeting new people like back home. But here I'm just like, hey, I'm Nicole. I'll probably see you out again next weekend. Like, let's exchange WeChats, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely has made me a little bit more outgoing.
Yeah.
You have to be. I mean, you need, otherwise you'll just be alone all the time. No one wants that.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay, so to kind of wrap it up, I'm interested to hear you talk about your like educational journey. So you started with just a TEFL, and then how did you kind of work your way up to this like good job that you're in now?
Okay, so yeah, like I said, I started with the TEFL, but I realized that if I wanted to be taken seriously as a teacher, I needed to get a teaching license. So I actually found out that in the state of Massachusetts, as long as you have a bachelor's degree, and I actually have a master's degree, so that helped. Um, and you can get a teaching license. You just need to pass these exams. So I actually, me and a friend of mine, we got a book and we just started studying. Um, I ended up getting the license specifically for English, teaching English as a second language. Um, but there are many different options, pretty much anything,
Any
any
subjects?
subject, yeah, you need. I've actually been thinking about getting a second one, so I can possibly teach high school psychology because my
That
mental
would be
health
cool.
background. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I studied hard about like 6 months. I was studying for, but I ended up passing the exams.
And there was
Very
multiple
exciting.
exams, right?
There are two different exams you have to take, right? Um, yeah. So one of them is more like grammar based. I guess just like proving that you can be a teacher. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just like very simple. And then, but the ESL exam was actually like really specific, and I honestly, it was a difficult exam, but you definitely have to study for it,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, I got my teaching license in the state of Massachusetts. It is like a, what is it called? Not preliminary. Is it preliminary
I
license?
think it
Something like
was.
that.
Yeah.
So you can only have it for 5 years and you can't extend it. So if you wanted to get a permanent license in Massachusetts, you have to take a course, I think, in the U.S. and pass the course, and then apply for like the second level license. So I haven't decided what I'm going to do about that yet. Right now, I've only had it for a year, so we'll see.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's awesome. I remember you telling me about that, and it's like kind of nice because then you don't have to be in the States because, like, obviously neither of us plan to do that. I know some people also do PGCEs as well, so that's kind of
Yep,
another
that's
option you
another
can
option,
go.
of
Yeah, I've kind
course.
of looked into both of those in the past, but okay. Well, I think that's everything that we had to chat about. I appreciate you coming on and talking about your experience in Spain and in China. I think they sound like both totally different, but I think that's also kind of cool. Like you get to see the different cultures and teaching and everything just totally different about both countries. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Happy to do it.
All right, so that concludes this episode of Nomad Neek's Lifestyle. I hope you enjoyed the episode and I hope that you got a little bit of insight about the differences between teaching in China versus teaching in Spain. And it's always interesting to hear a fellow expat's perspective on life and just how they really ended up in this lifestyle. So I hope you enjoyed, and we will be back very soon with a new episode for you. Bye.